Patch 3.1 is out, and some people had mixed feelings on it. Overall, during my patch notes stream, just reading through the notes, I felt relatively positive, but not like super hyped. After digging into the game a bit, and this is the live version of the game, no beta nonsense here, I am very excited, and I have some things to share with you today. An unnoted change is right in front of your screen here. The Demons of Chaos roster has been wildly expanded. All of the heralds of each of the Monogod factions, plus their exalted blanks, got added. Exalted Lord of Change, Exalted Great and Clean Ones. This does make the Demons of Chaos roster a lot more diverse. So that's a nice, easy change to look at and see as a good thing. But there's also a bunch of small changes that both weren't mentioned in the patch, and I have talked about before, but they did fix Dragon Landing, which they had fixed. So this is an ongoing thing that, like, when I was using the Chaos Dwarf beta, before Chaos Dwarfs came out, they had fixed Dragon Landing, they had fixed attacking foot characters, they had fixed all that stuff, but then it didn't make it to live, which is kind of annoying. Well, now it feels like a lot of those changes finally ended up on live. So dragons are landing pretty consistently. Now, we'll need to see, hundreds and hundreds of games to see if it ever happens, but I couldn't replicate it here with Volkmar, which was usually pretty easy to replicate when it was a problem. Dragons can just land and attack now rather than T-posing or doing that weird flying bug. Another thing I had noted in that beta patch being fixed, but then in live was not actually fixed, was foot characters. Foot characters were very, very tanky against supremely large opponents, and that does not seem to be the case anymore. Being knocked down doesn't seem to be an instant save from any kind of damage whatsoever. I don't know. I've just noticed big demonic units being much more capable of hitting foot characters over and over again. So here's that again, this time with less nobles so that Skarbrand doesn't get immediately killed as I'm trying to show you something. But he does have a pretty good time hitting foot characters, which is quite nice. Now, I mean, nobles and the prince obviously will beat him up because that's a lot of anti-large single entities, but it's pretty good at hitting them. Another change that is positive in the game is chariots feeling a lot better. Now, they're not crazy OP or anything. They're just doing what chariots should be doing, in my opinion. They can roll through infantry that are unbraced, not taking a lot of damage. If they roll into braced infantry, not halberds, but braced infantry normally, they don't take a lot of damage. They just don't get very far into, like, braced dwarf warriors that have this charge defense versus large. And if they're not braced, Cetra can roll through and do a bunch of damage. Already, this dwarf unit is half HP, and Cetra hasn't taken too much damage in return. So that is nice to see. And it's not just Cetra on his OP chariot. We have the Orc Boar chariots here that are going to charge some dwarf warriors, and of course they are going to stop and brace, and with their brace versus the large, the Orc Boar chariots aren't going to get much done on the first charge, so you'll need infantry to break that charge defense for you. But once you get the charge defense broken and they're not braced the second time around, you will get deeper penetration and more damage, and that Dwarf Lord got in the way a little bit. You can see we're still getting decent damage down, and it's really if the chariots stop and fight at all, they'll get good damage out, which is really nice. You can see how much damage they're doing to these dwarf warriors as they pull through, and they're not taking too much in return, which is what you would want out of, like, a chariot fighting a non-great axe regular infantry. Like, they're getting in and out pretty cleanly and easily as they need to. They're taking very little damage in response, and the infantry is getting whittled down over time. Overall, this is healthy chariot behavior. You might be like, wow, it's not instant murdering the dwarves. I mean, yeah, you wouldn't want that. That would be terrible. So I tested several chariot types. I haven't tested every chariot in the whole game. I was testing Norskin chariots, the Ice Wolf chariots, the Orc Boar chariots, the Tomb King's chariots, things like that. So there might be a couple chariots you can find here and there that are pretty bad, but overall chariots in general are performing better. Another thing I've noticed is that cav charges in general are a lot more impactful, and now we'll get to the unfortunate example next, but for now, like, take these Demigryph Densa Halberds versus Warbear Riders. I swear on patch 3.0, when these two collide, it would be kind of like they would bounce off each other like rubber balls and not do a lot of damage, and then the charge bonus would kick in afterwards, and their melee stats would be improved. So in melee, they would start beating each other up a lot. But now on this patch, charges feel very like impactful. Like you can feel it in your bones. Like watch these two's health bar when they collide. Like that's a significant chunk of damage off of the first, I don't know, 4 seconds of combat, and then they get into a bit of a grind, and the halberds die. But the cav charges do a lot of damage on impact, which feels much more realistic. Like if a horse and a bear, I mean, well, in this case, a fucking demigryph and a bear slam into each other face first, claws and teeth gnashing you would expect some pain. So these are all really positive changes. I've been having a pretty good time with it so far. I haven't gotten a ton of time to sit down and just dig in and like play a ton of games and get a ton of reps out. But I just wanted to say that like the patch notes aren't everything. They didn't include a lot of the changes I showed today. At least I don't believe that it was written anywhere, anything I've been showing you today here. So these are all like extra changes that we didn't even know were in the notes and whatnot. The last thing I do want to show you is a little bit of an overbuff situation. We have people talking about Grail Guardians and Grail Knights. Grail Knights being the Moro piece. These are Grail Guardians charging into Phoenix Guard. They take a little bit of damage, they deal a little bit, but it was about even trade. And then Unbraced Phoenix Guard take a little bit more damage, but they also still deal more back. Now the Grail Knights are going to come in. The Grail Knights are probably overperforming. This is them charging Braced Phoenix Guard. Not a lot of damage on them. They take a bit more on their way out. And then they'll go in that Lance for, oh well, not Lance formation, just versus Unbraced Phoenix Guard. And they still take a good amount of damage, but this time they actually are going to beat the Phoenix Guard into the ground. So there's 2 points to this. There is a conversation going around that's Grail Knights are overtuned, and that is true. But the 2 sides of it are that Grail Knights can literally kill anything and everything all the time, and I don't think that's true. Because I was testing this versus AI, and the Chosen with Halberds that I'm going to have 3 of here, and Coop says Knights. My Grail Knights could charge in and out of Chosen constantly and not take any damage. But it feels like that's an AI issue. Because as a player, all I had to do was stand still, and then the Companions of Quenelles charge in, and then I gave an attack order onto the Companions, and look at how much fucking damage they take. Now, those aren't Grail Knights, of course. But I'm saying, like, it feels like the AI, when I was charging them, didn't ever give attack orders into the enemy Knights. So that Chosen just mucked up the Companions of Quenelles. That's how that looks. Now, these are Grail Knights. They have relatively similar stats to Companions of Quenelles. They charge in here. I give attack orders onto them, and they take more damage than my Chosen with Halberds. Now, is it as much as they should have taken? Probably not. Like, I am saying the Grail Knights are overtuned right now, for sure. But I do think if you're running a test with AI Halberds, you're going to get some false results because AI are just apparently stupid as shit. So, yeah, Halberds can still counter Grail Knights, but if you're lower mass than like Chosen or Phoenix Guard or something, these Grail Knights will actually smash through a lot of those things. So do watch out for that. I mean, Grail Knights are overtuned. I'm not trying to say they're not overtuned, but I don't know. It feels like the jury's still out on the testing. So where does this leave us? Hopefully, if you're a land battle player, boxes will be on their way out. I'm actually kind of curious. When I didn't see any Grand Cathay or Dwarf nerfs on the patch notes, I was a little concerned. But after seeing all of the unnamed changes that came with this patch that we didn't get credited in the changes, boxes might struggle. With chariots, cav charges, big monsters feeling better at clearing out infantry, and then big single entities being able to hit foot characters, I do suspect Grand Cathay and Dwarves might have a rough go in this patch, so we'll have to see. I will give CA credit. Maybe nerfing them when all these other systems changes were getting fixed at the same time wouldn't have been wise, so we'll just have to see what happens. But hopefully you guys enjoy these changes that came snuck in the patch that I didn't even tell you about as much as I have been enjoying them. See you on the battlefield. Roar!
Subscribe, yes.